changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Friend Friday, which means we get to talk to someone in the Chicken Soup for the Soul family. And today, that's our partner in guided journaling, Tony Raimondo, who is the CEO of Topics Media Lab. Tony, welcome to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast.
Hey, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, Topics Media Lab is a really interesting company that we're working with. They make these things called bookazines, which I will let Tony explain to you. And Tony has a lot of experience in print publishing. Besides Topics Media Lab, which he's a co-founder of, he's also been at Rolling Stone, Men's Fitness, Jane, WWE Kids, and a lot of other publications. And he's a graduate of University of Illinois and also came to us from the U.S. Navy, which is a cool part of your background. So tell us what a guided journal is and what a bookazine is.
Absolutely. I think a bookazine in its most basic format is a really high-end magazine. So, I think what it becomes is whatever the topic, whether it's John Wayne or Marilyn Monroe or men's health or Star Wars, they are basically a magazine version of what you would consider a book. And so I think the beautiful thing is for a lot of America that necessarily doesn't want to spend a ton of money on a book, this is more of a coffee table kind of product that's not going to set you back $30 like a book. So they're very high end. The paper's nicer. They're oversized. The stories are longer. The pictures are prettier. There's just more investment in making it feel like a quality bookazine/magazine rather than your typical monthly magazine that comes in the mail that you would, throw out after a quick read. This is something you would keep forever.
Yeah, and they look like magazines in terms of their height and their width, but they're usually thicker than magazines, and they have that nice straight binding. And I know that they're sold in the magazine section of a store or in a newsstand. But then you're right, you keep them the way you would keep a book. You would never throw out a bookazine, even though you would throw out a magazine.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of it also is that there are no ads, if any. Once in a blue moon, there might be an ad promoting another product that correlates with the topic. So maybe a Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal might have something about a book that you're putting out. But typically you're not going to find, if you're reading a Newsweek special edition on the death of Prince, let's say, you're not going to find a macaroni and cheese ad in there. And so though they are in the magazine section, magazines are typically an impulse buy, whereas a book is more of a destination. You're going to the bookstore or going online specifically to order that. And so what we always tried to do for the last 5 years is kind of bridge that gap between, making a quick trip to the magazine or to the grocery store or, wherever you typically do most of your shopping, and then being able to pick up something that's really cool and high quality that's, not a true destination. It's a bit of an impulse buy, but it's something that you would keep forever, and it's not something that you would, you'd put it on your coffee table for display purposes after you're done reading it, as opposed to pitching it in the recycling bin.
So the one that we have made with you, actually, that has just hit the newsstands is called a guided journal. It's the Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal. And you and I have talked about coloring books for adults and how that was such a big thing, but now that seems to be slowing down. And I think you're right. You told me that you think that guided journaling is the next big thing after coloring books. And tell me, how did you come up with this guided journaling idea that we've done together with you?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because it's coloring books for adults had been on the books, in the bookstores and on the bookshelves for a couple years. And as time kind of went on, more people kind of put out more and more. It went from, cats and animals to mandalas and crystals and lots of different variations on adult coloring. And it's funny because when my team first came back from the big book expo, maybe a year and a half ago, they said, adult coloring books are going to be big this year. And the first thing you think of is adult coloring books in a sense that it's not for children or something a little less risque. And I think the amazing thing is we first looked at it and said, interesting, but probably not something that was really going to take off. And then as I spent a little more time thinking about it, and I went home to visit my mother in Wisconsin. I'm from the Midwest, as you mentioned. I was in the Navy, so I left there when I was a teenager and joined the Navy, and then moved around the world. But I go home to visit my mother in Wisconsin, and she had an adult coloring book, and I was blown away. And I said, is it, you're making a joke, because I am thinking about doing adult coloring books. And she said, I had no idea, and I bought this in an airport on my way back from a trip, and it's really amazing, and it really makes me feel de-stressed. And she's like, and I feel like when I need a break from the world, this is where I go. So then the light bulb went off, and I started doing a lot of research. And what I realized was that nobody was doing adult coloring books in the magazine space, at the grocery stores, at the checkout pockets. No one was doing them really other than in the brick and mortar bookstores. And though we love those, I think the truth of the matter is there are, tens of 60, 70, 80,000 grocery stores where people are in and out of every day, equally stressed, don't know they exist, never heard of them, but would be perfect for someone who's looking to really unplug and unwind a little bit. So we jumped into the coloring book game. And we started last year, middle of the year, and it was just a really huge success. It was a really big phenomenon that kind of not only did it take off, but everyone started creating every kind of coloring book you could imagine. Pick your favorite topic, and there was an adult coloring book for you there.
Well, now we're moving on to guided journaling, and I love our new guided journals. So let me try to explain this to our listeners. You take 15 or so Chicken Soup for the Soul stories. You combine them with inspirational quotes and with really fun activities. You print them on gorgeous paper, beautiful colors, all made in the USA, and you put it together in this guided journal. And it is so much fun. Like, all of the millennials in our office love it because it's so much fun to read a story and then fill out like the next page with the activities that you can do, keywords from the story, write something about yourself, maybe draw a little picture of something that it reminds you of. And it's really a way to engage in some self-discovery and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Yeah, it really is the next evolution, and I think you nailed it, which is taking the amazing stories that Chicken Soup for the Soul has the stories that people have come to love and look for, and using those as a catalyst to kind of explore and embrace your own inner strength. And so the stories are there and they're amazing, and then it's to build off of those. So we didn't want to make it like a workbook. This was not intended, nor did it come out as like homework. But what it really came out as, use these amazing stories of inspiration to kind of dig deep inside yourself a little bit, and maybe you're due to hit the reset button. Maybe it's been a long day at work. You've been attached to your phone, you're attached to your iPad, you're attached to your computer, and this is a really great way to kind of unplug, unwind, relax. And I think the art of diary, journaling, writing in general, for both millennials and adults is it's a lost art. And I think you're close to it because you write books and you see it and you're surrounded by it and this is your world. But the average person's not spending a lot of time these days sitting down and writing, and that's a really amazing feeling that people have kind of forgotten about. That whether you're crafting a letter to someone overseas or just sending a note to someone you love, putting pen to paper and being able to do this really gives you that sense of detaching from all of the things that bring you stress. And I think this guided journal, Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal, is exactly that. Every other page, there's a cool activity for you to do, whether it's just a doodle or whether you're going to make a list of 10 things that you're going to set out to do this year. And then you write those 10 things and crumble up that piece of paper and throw it in the fireplace and forget about those 10 things and only think of one thing. This is a really good way to kind of shake up the norm and kind of step out from what you've been maybe typically doing that's got you stressed and a little bit tied up.
It's a great way to get to know yourself, because I know that when people sit down and write a whole Chicken Soup for the Story, they really learn a lot about themselves. But if you don't have time to sit down and write a 1,000-word story, you can sit down, read a story, jot down a few keywords, jot down a few goals for yourself, etc. And it's really fun to get to know yourself in this bright, colorful, very pretty book. I think it's going to make a wonderful gift for people, and it's the kind of thing that 20 and 30-year-olds love doing. This is so much fun.
You get to really come back to it. So, you don't have to sit down and finish it. You might just, tick off a few boxes and take a spin through it and leaf through it. But, it's funny because myself, like you spend a lot of time in publishing, and you can very easily get to a blasé point where you're like, well, it's just another product. But when you take this Chicken Soup for the Soul journal, this guided journal, and of course I brought one home to my mother, and she loved it, and she's my mom, and she would, but I spend a lot of time through it, and I might not be the exact demographic as a 46-year-old male with 3 kids under the age of 3. I don't have probably a ton of time to sit around and journal for myself, but this weekend I really went through it again because we just got the finished product recently, and it's on newsstands, and it's great, and it's just amazing. It doesn't matter gender or age. You just find something in here that resonates with you and gives you just a little bit of enough wiggle room to find something inside yourself that's really great.
I am excited about it. We rolled out our podcast this year, which is a great new way for us to share our stories with people. And now this is our next big new product that, comes off our regular Chicken Soup for the Soul books. So I'm so excited that we're 3 days into these new guided journals being on the newsstands. And I know we're planning to make 6 a year, and I'm very excited about that. It's really been a pleasure working on them. And I know that the editor I worked with is a pretty young guy, and I was very impressed at how he could channel his inner female. He did a wonderful, wonderful job. This is a man who's in touch with himself.
Yeah, Jeff is newly married too, so I think he's extra in touch with himself right now. But he's very smart, and I think, doing something, and it's a funny thing because it can come very naturally to, I think, everyone. That's the beauty of this. Like, I don't think he had anything special in his bag of tricks, but when you start to explore the journaling side of who you kind of are, it kind of comes out. And then with you on the other side of it, helping to finesse it to make sure that it feels exactly the way it should, it's kind of a winning formula. So I think everyone who goes through this guided journal will really experience kind of the process of kind of putting it together, but in your own mind.
So I know that people can go online to look at the guided journal, and the website is called onnewsstandsnow.com. Where else can people find the Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal?
Yeah, I think Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal will be in about 30 to 45,000 retailers. So whether it's your local Piggly Wiggly or your Vons, Walgreens, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, everywhere. It'll be at checkout pockets. It'll be a normal magazine display, Dollar General. It will literally blanket America. And you're right, you can buy it online, but I think you'll see it. You'll when you see it on the newsstand, you'll know that it's Chicken Soup for the Soul. It feels like Chicken Soup for the Soul. Different size, shape, different paper, lots of pictures, which we discussed, which is really great because sometimes it's amazing to be able to tell, enhance an amazing story with an amazing photograph. And I think when people see it, they'll know it. And it says new right on the corner, so you can't miss it.
And it doesn't stay on the newsstands that long, right? Because it's more like a magazine in that it comes and then it goes. How many weeks will it stay on the newsstands?
Right. It'll be on the newsstands from 60 days to 90 days. So typically what we try to do is keep it out for 60 because it's not a monthly magazine that has hard news in it and that will get old. And so we want to leave it out for a long enough time, but we don't want to leave it out to a point where people who want a new one have to wait. So typically, depending on the retailer and how fast they're turning product over, it'll be somewhere between 2 months to 3 months. But this will be out through the holiday season. So I think it'll help de-stress the folks who are, and holiday season is the most stressful time of the year. This will help them to kind of get through their own holiday season if they need it, or share it with someone who may need it themselves.
Tony, I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm Amy Newmark, and thank you all for listening. And next time we get together, I'm going to share a story about how you can make sure that you aren't your own worst critic. And if you want to learn more about our new guided journal, please go to our website, chickensoup.com, or go to Topix Media, that's Topix Media Lab, and also go to onnewsstandsnow.com if your local store is sold out of the Chicken Soup for the Soul guided journal. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you, Amy.